potentially losing 3 of your 4 starters in Nelson, McLeod, and Harris. I mean, who's going to play those spots for you? You have to go out and address that. Now, they're going to have money to spend in free agency, yeah, but, free agency is no guarantee of it.
You think there's any chance that the coordinators, absent of Jonathan Gannon getting a head coaching job,
be able to get that without Zoom sessions and direct answers from the participants involved. All right, let's Zoom section up our buddy from Sports Illustrated. NYU, is that what you're wearing today, Kracz?
You got it, buddy. You got it.
You grad?
My son is. My son's
your son
graduated
is.
from there.
Very nice.
Yeah. Yep.
That's a Golden Ram.
I am a Golden Ram. I don't have any Golden Ram swag, though.
Neither do I. I'm a Golden Ram as well.
I'm guessing you both grew out of it from the time you would have.
Well, I certainly did. I don't know about Ed. Ed was a wrestler, so.
Yeah, things have gotten a little more snug as I've gotten a little bit older. Had to add the extra X to my wardrobe.
Yeah, but obviously you're proud of your son, and NYU. I would be as well. But I've always called WCU the NYU of the Pennsylvania State Athletic Conference.
Yeah, it's the Ivy League of Pennsylvania. Really,
that's true.
Yeah,
that's true. Nobody's interested in this.
Somehow I think the University of Pennsylvania would argue with that, since there is an actual Ivy League school here in Pennsylvania. Yeah. But that's just my guess.
No, that's just reputation.
Okay. How about Chester County, the Ivy League of Chester County?
Yes.
There you go. Ding, ding.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about the Eagles, Ed. Obviously, season-ending press conference, Howie Roseman, Nick Sirianni. You got to start with the quarterback. Pretty definitive. They left a little opening, the door slightly ajar, but it's pretty clear that the plan, as of January 19th at least, was Jalen Hurts is going to be the starting quarterback of this team. Did it surprise you how emphatic they were?
Not really. I guess if you could look back to the summer when they were pretty non-committal about who the quarterback was going to be, and that left all the rumors of Deshaun Watson and different quarterbacks possibly coming in. Yeah, I guess it is a bit of a surprise when you look at it that way, but I kind of think they really had no choice in this situation to kind of back him. I mean, he took them to the playoffs. Nick Sirianni has raved about him pretty much all season, talking about how he has improved, how he's gotten better. And, now it seems like the general manager's on board. And I think that's the way they're going to go with this, is they're going to go with Jalen Hurts, unless, someone makes him an offer, Howie, that is, an offer that he can't refuse. If somebody goes all Godfather on him, then maybe he switches up midstream. But right now, it seems to be the way it's going to go. It didn't really surprise me. I guess they were pretty emphatic about it. Maybe that's a surprise. But I think that was kind of the direction they had to go. Jalen Hurts put them in that corner, and that's the decision they've made.
Since you went the Godfather route, I'll follow up there. So you're telling me there's no chance that Howie Roseman goes all Godfather on a quarterback on another team, that he makes Seattle an offer that they can't refuse, or he makes, when Deshaun Watson's legal situation gets cleared up enough, and John and I talked about this extensively on the show yesterday. He educated me to things I didn't know. It doesn't seem to you like they're going to Godfather another team's quarterback in here to Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think they're pretty genuine when they say they want to build this team with these draft picks and put weapons around Jalen Hurts. So, I don't think that he would go out, and maybe he does just to see if he can't play somebody. But I think it's going to take a lot to land one of these quarterbacks. And I don't think Roseman would part with, a first-round pick this year or 2. I saw some on Twitter say, how about all 3 first-round picks for Russell Wilson, which I think is, obviously way too high. But yeah, I don't think
that's what I think it's going to take.
Yeah. Well, I don't think Roseman would do that. I really don't think forfeit 3 first-round picks for a 33-year-old quarterback that's going to blow up your salary cap coming off a down year. I just don't see that happening. You need other parts of this team to be built. And if you go and trade away this draft collateral for a quarterback, I don't see them doing that. So yeah, I'm not sure Howie Roseman's going to be actively shopping for a deal with another quarterback. I think if somebody were to come to him and say, hey, this is what we'll give you, whatever, Deshaun Watson for a 4th round pick or something ridiculous, then yeah, okay, let's do it. But I just don't see that happening.
I think it was Daniel Jeremiah. I think it was a little bit too much. So I'll throw this out to you, Ed. What about 2 first-round picks? And
No.
Let's knock it down. We'll talk about 16 and 19. They had 15, 16, 19. So 16 and 19, a 2023 first-round pick, that probably gets it done. And that 2023 first-round pick, in theory, you won 9 games this year. If you're able to pick up Russell Wilson, that's going to put you in the 12-win category, at least conversation-wise. So that would make the 2023 pick less exciting because it'll be down at the bottom of the first round. Does that pique your interest?
No, not really. Again, I just don't. I don't think I'd give up that kind of collateral. You're talking about 2 first-round picks this year and a first-round pick next year.
That's what it's going to take.
Yeah,
It is.
And again,
They're going to get that. Seattle's going to get 3 ones.
And I just don't see that happening again. And does Russell Wilson even want to come here? I mean,
that's the bigger,
but I just don't see them going that direction. I really don't. I think they're pretty genuine about their desire to put these parts around Jalen Hurts and grow Jalen Hurts into their system. He's gotten his feet wet 1 year in. He comes back as a second-year guy, and you see what he can do. See if he can get better as a passer. I think they're genuine about that. I think they see this defense and they know that they have holes on this defense that need fixed. You look at the secondary, you're potentially losing 3 of your 4 starters in Nelson, McLeod, and Harris. I mean, who's going to play those spots for you? You have to go out and address that. Now they're going to have money to spend in free agency. Yeah. But, free agency is no guarantee of a successful fix. Only 33%, I think I saw, of free agents work out with their new team. So, I think they're pretty intent on going into the draft with these picks. Now, on draft day, could that change? Sure, you can move up, you can move down, you can move out for another pick next year if you want to kind of hedge your bets on Jalen Hurts. If you try to acquire another first-round pick in 2023, whatever that looks like. But I think they were pretty much sold on Hurts being the guy.
All right, Ed Kracz, being the all-around NFL insider that you are, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor and rank where Quez Watkins falls in on the number 2 wide receiver list across the National Football League. Because the coach said he thought he could be pretty high on that list. Number 1, it did kind of connotate that Jalen Reagor is no better than a 3. I don't even know that he's that. But Watkins is going to be able to comp to any and all other 2 wide receivers in the league. That wasn't the case this year. Why should I believe it will be the case next year?
Well, you'd have to give me a list of some number 2 wide receivers that we could compare.
I'd start with CeeDee Lamb in division. If Amari Cooper is there number 1, you want to compare CeeDee Lamb to Quez Watkins?
Okay. No. All right. So that pushes him down to number 2.
How about Chris Godwin in Tampa behind Mike Evans?
Yeah, I mean, Super Bowl team, sure. Chris Godwin's pretty good.
How about we'll go Adam Thielen to Justin Jefferson?
Yeah. And listen, you're talking about 2 guys there that got hurt this year. Thielen couldn't finish the season. Godwin couldn't finish the season.
Still take
best availability. If the best ability is availability, Quez Watkins checks that box.
Yeah, he did. He made it to all 17 games. God bless him.
That's a positive. I give it.
Hey, and the guy had 646 yards receiving. That's pretty good in an offense that there's no doubt goes through Devontae Smith and Dallas Goedert. Jalen Hurts gets his piece. So, I mean, that's a pretty significant number for a number 2 wide receiver. I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen two receivers like Smith and Watkins in Philadelphia go over 1,500 yards combined. I can't remember, maybe 2014 with Macklin and Vaughn or whoever else was the number two then. But I mean, it's been a long time since we've seen a wide receiver group have that kind of success. So I think it's fair to be excited about Quez Watkins. Did the coach overspeak and say, "Hey, he's could be the best number two of all time" or whatever he said? That's
don't know that he went all
far-flung.
time. I think he was going for next year.
Yeah.
Whatever it was, it's a little bit far flung. And as coach,
I think what Nick said was it was one of the best number twos. Got a chance to be one of the best number twos that he's been around. So evidently.
Really?
Nick hasn't been around many great number twos. Nothing against Quez, but he's not. One of the issues, and Jody and I were talking about this, and with the draft coming up and the 3 first-round picks, as you mentioned, it, this team is traditionally built up front on both sides of the football, offensive, defensive line. I think they're right to do that. I think that's the reason they're competitive in these so-called transitional years. But people like skill positions. They like the sexy picks. They like that. And they want on offense, they certainly want receivers. That hasn't worked out for them. On defense, they want playmaking linebackers, which the Eagles just don't take. Is that going to change this year with multiple first-round picks?
No, I think, listen, they need to look at the defensive line very seriously. Obviously, they only had 29 sacks this year, very thin at defensive end. Howie said Brandon Graham will return next year. That will help. But listen, even if they had him this year, how many sacks is he good for? 5, maybe 6, 7, I don't know. You're still in the low 30s. Not good enough. Fletcher Cox, it sounded like he might come back now. You talk about Howie picking up the phone and making calls on Jalen. I could certainly see him doing that with Fletcher Cox, and Fletcher Cox being, moving on this offseason. And then you're going to have to look at defensive tackle in the draft or free agency. And then look at the offensive line. I mean, let's say they make these 3 picks. I could see them investing one of those in an offensive lineman, because Brandon Brooks sounds like he's going to be moving on, whether he retires or goes to play elsewhere. I don't know. Jason Kelsey sounds like he'll be back, but if he doesn't and he retires, I mean, that's 2 pretty big losses on your offensive line right there. So yeah, you're going to have to find, some high pedigree player in the draft to replace those 2 guys, or at least one of those guys. And even if only one retires or moves on, I think you still go that direction. I think you have to look at offensive line as in play for one of those first-round picks.
I was a little surprised by your take there, Ed. Yay or nay? Fletcher Cox is going to be a Philadelphia Eagle next year.
Well, as we sit here on January 9th or January 20th, I guess it is now, I would say, yay, he will be. But it would not surprise me if he was not.
100%. All right. Maybe I misheard you. Maybe I mistook you. It sounded to me like you were leaning more toward Fletcher not than yes coming back, but you're still yes, but it's not impossible that he is moved during the offseason.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, once the new year hits in the middle of March, the new league year, once that hits, then, check back with me. I might feel a little bit differently. But right now, it seems like Fletcher will be a part of this team, but it would not surprise me if Howie picks up the phone and says, hey, do you want Fletcher Cox for this, and this, whatever.
Well, let's talk about the assistant coaches, Ed, because, recent history and obviously new coaching staff. Jeffrey Lurie's had this sort of, I call it scapegoating. Nobody's happy at the end of their season except one team. So, there's always improvement to be made. And the Eagles have generally made some changes on their coaching staff, even when they weren't drastic like last year, whether it was going back to Carson Walsh, Mike Groh, people like that. You think there's any chance that the coordinators, absent of Jonathan Gannon getting a head coaching job, any chance he or Michael Clay are not back? I think we know Shane Steichen is going to be back. And then positional coaches. How much shakeup do you think there's going to be, or is there going to be any?
Well, Sirianni said he really liked this staff. Now, it doesn't mean they're all going to come back. I think you have to start with the special teams coach, Michael Clay. Nice guy, like Michael Clay. But their special teams weren't very good this year. Let's face it. They really struggled on kickoff coverage. Their punter really went downhill. I mean, talk about guys that are probably going to go. Aaron Sippas, I think, will go. They'll have to upgrade the punter position. But Michael Clay, I think, is going to be someone that might not be back. Jonathan Gannon's interesting. I think he comes back if he doesn't get a head coaching job. But, you're looking at your staff, and, one of the candidates that Darius Slade brought up, how much he has helped him, is Denard Wilson, their DB coach. So, it'd be interesting to see if the Eagles would move him to the defensive coordinator spot over Gannon. I don't see it, but Denard Wilson could possibly become a defensive coordinator somewhere in this league. You have 8 head coaching openings. You're going to need,
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah,
8 staffs. I mean, Denard Wilson could get a really serious look at being a defensive coordinator. So if I had to mark somebody that would not be back, it would be Michael Clay, perhaps Denard Wilson. I thought Nick Rallis did a good job with the linebackers. I think putting TJ Edwards in the center of that defense really helped them. But, I think he'll be back. He's still 28 years old, very young guy. Tracy Rocker with the defensive line, maybe he gets replaced. I don't think so. I think they kind of bought in with him. But, the defensive line did not perform up to its abilities this year, I don't think. So, yeah, you have to look at him as possible candidate to move on. On the
what
offense,
about Aaron Moorhead?
Yeah, they were ready to move on from Aaron last year, and then they decided to bring him back. So yeah, he could be someone that they look to upgrade with. Obviously Stoutland's not going anywhere. I'm just trying to rattle off the coaches. Jamal Singleton certainly I don't think would go anywhere unless another team makes him an offer to be an offensive coordinator someplace. But you have to keep in mind that like I said, there's 8 coaching openings. You're going to need 8 staffs in place in these new cities with new head coaches. So there's some guys on this Eagles staff that could be attractive candidates for an upgrade on another staff.
All right, our buddy Les Bowen, I thought asked a good question yesterday of Coach Sirianni. 2021 to 2022, what do you see as different about next year's Philadelphia Eagles version as compared to this year? And certainly what you're looking to do is improve. So what do you want to either be better at in 2022 or change from 2021 to 2022? And Nick went down the road of fast starts or inability to not get fast starts, both for the season at 2-5 and in games, more so in the second half of the season than the first, that it'd be nice to not be behind 7-10.
Get the coin toss in there, Jody. Get the coin toss in there.
Well, he didn't get the coin toss in there, so do I really need to bring it up again? I was hoping that's where he went. He did not. No great. Talk about not surprising. The coach didn't go there on, I need to be better on that. So we'll stick to the answer that he did give, and he didn't go into great details. Can the Eagles be better in that? You expect a quicker start next year? They better be better than 2-5. But in games, is this a trait that if they continue to coach the way they coach, it's something that they're going to have to get over, Mr. Kracz?
Slow starts record-wise have been kind of, the bugaboo of this team before Nick Sirianni. You remember Doug Pederson got off to slow starts in 2018 and 2019, and they're playing catch-up all season long, having to win games at the end of the year to get into the playoffs. So it's not just a Nick Sirianni problem. It could be a personnel problem, but you hope that in the second year of a head coaching staff or, a coaching staff that you're a little bit more familiar with how things are being done. You hope that Nick Sirianni has learned his lesson in terms of maybe game planning to get off to quicker starts. I don't know how much is being done in the way of, scripting plays, but whatever it is, they need to figure that out because you cannot get off to slow starts to the season and slow starts in games. I mean, you can't fall behind Tampa Bay 17-0 in a playoff game and expect to come back to win. You can do that against Washington and New York because of their talent level. but you can't do that in a game, and that's where it's got to start. You got to get off the quicker starts in a game, because if you do that, then you're going to win more consistently, hopefully early on. So they're sitting at 4-2 instead of 2-4 or 5-2, whatever it is. But yeah, you can't put yourself in a playoff situation from week 13 on through the rest of the season. It's just not sustainable. So I think they can get better with more consistency, a head coach that has hopefully learned how to begin games, and players that are young enough now that know what it takes to get started. So yeah, I think they can get better just by being another year older, in the coach's chair and on the field with the players. So yeah, I think they can get better in that regard. But again, it's been a problem that goes back way before Sirianni, and it hasn't gotten fixed. They have to figure out how to do that.
That's interesting. Ed, you bring up, and that has been a theme, slow starts dating back to the previous regime. So I'm going to spin that off into a larger, more encompassing question. The history of this team in recent seasons has been playing poorly early in the season, and then playing well late when they get into the NFC East portion of their schedule, which has been a terrible division. And as Jody will tell you, there are 8 teams playing this weekend. Only one division isn't represented, the NFC East. So when we look at this as a bigger picture thing, and the Eagles overachieving at 9-8, is there some fool's gold in there because they're beating these NFC East teams who stink? Dallas doesn't stink, but you get
Overrated.
my point.
Yeah, it's a great point. I mean, sure, I think there's 4 fool's gold there. Yes. But you can only play who you can play. And, right now you're the second best team in the NFC East. And last year they weren't. They were the 4th best team in the NFC East. So if you want to look at it that way, that's a little bit of improvement. But just how much have they improved from that 2-5 start? Yeah, because they played the NFC East. I mean, did they really improve, or are they just the best team of a bad lot? And they're not, like you said, even the best team. The Cowboys are the best team in the NFC East, and we saw what happened to them. So yeah, the NFC East, this is the time you should be making your move. If the division's going to be this week, you better take advantage of it, and you better figure out a way to get to the top of it. And like Howie Roseman said, try to host one of those playoff games going forward. It's a big step to take. I'm not convinced they're there. Obviously, there's always teams that make the playoffs that don't come back the following year. The Eagles were one of them. They didn't get in last year. They got in this year. But I think there were 7 teams that did not make the playoffs in 2021 that were there in 2020. So, that next step is going to be very difficult to take. But you're right. Being in this division certainly helps their case.
All right, Eddie, I want to see if your perception, and that's all it is at this time, his perception is the same as my partner's, John's. He said a couple times over the last few days, not trending in the direction of Doug Pederson getting one of the head coaching jobs. That a lot of names are being thrown around. Doug's had a couple of meetings, hasn't come out of there with whispers of, he could get the job, or they were pressed by him. So it might not happen for Doug this offseason. He got the Eagle job. So he had to interview well enough with Jeff Lurie to convince Jeff Lurie to hire him. And yeah, they cashed the Super Bowl ticket. God bless everybody. I'm assuming he's as good, if not a better interviewer now. He does have a Super Bowl ring that he can wear into a meeting like that, which would impress me. I don't know. Other owners around the league, I don't know if so much, but it would impress the snot out of me. If the perception is correct, why do you think Doug isn't advancing toward one of these 8 coaching openings?
Geez, you got me.
Sorry, it's a tough question, unfair question. I know that's not your usual beat, but I just wanted to see if you had an opinion on it.
You're right. I mean, he's got the resume. He probably has the reference from Andy Reid in his back pocket as well. That certainly helped him get the Eagles job in Jeffrey Lurie's eyes. Andy Reid still walks on water, so that helped. But yeah, listen, you look at head coaches in the league too. I don't think there's ever been a head coach that's won a Super Bowl with 2 different teams unless I'm mistaken. So if you're a team that thinks they're close, and really, do any of these 8 teams think they're close to a Super Bowl? They're looking for new coaches for a reason. But, maybe that's part of it. Maybe Doug wants more power than some of these organizations are willing to give. That was always an issue in Philadelphia, was the whole power structure with Jeffrey and Howie. So maybe he's looking for more power than these organizations are willing to give someone who, they just want him to coach. And maybe he wants more of a say in personnel, more of a say in who he hires. And maybe teams just aren't ready to do that with him. And listen, being fired after 3 years from winning a Super Bowl, you have some explaining to do in that interview, how that came about. And maybe he's not given the right answers to that question.
It's a fair point. I hadn't thought about him, maybe being, I don't want to say upset, but what he went through here in Philadelphia and the fact that he didn't have that kind of power. Maybe it's got him pushing for more power in other situations. And that's one of the reasons Adam Gase didn't get the job here in 2016. So that should really excite people. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good when it comes to hiring head coaches, because the Eagles wanted Adam Gase, then they wanted Ben McAdoo. They ended up with, obviously, Doug Pederson. Then this time around, the hot names were Arthur Smith, Robert Saleh, and Brandon Staley. The Eagles were able to get interviews with Saleh and Smith, but they started late, and they ended up with Nick Sirianni, who ends up as the best head coach. Sometimes it's better to be lucky than good when it comes to hiring these head coaches. But, boy, I would think that Lombardi trophy would have more cachet than it does in the NFL, which is bizarre to me. It is bizarre to me that doesn't hold water for some of these owners. But maybe you described it best, Ed. Bad organizations are bad organizations for a reason. They don't make good decisions. And usually teams looking for coaches are bad organizations, at least in that moment. At least in that moment.
And with Doug, too, I mean, these recycled head coaches, sometimes they have some baggage that teams aren't comfortable with. Getting back to Jody's question, why isn't he getting an opportunity? Recycled coaches have baggage too, and maybe he's just not explaining that away well enough. Like I said, Super Bowl champion 3 years ago, and he gets fired. That to me, you got some splaining to do there if you're Doug Pederson, and maybe he's not explaining it too well.
That should be, if he isn't, that should be the easiest spin in human, in human history. I mean, why was I fired 3 years after a Super Bowl championship? I have no idea. You tell me. That seems crazy, doesn't it? That would be my explanation.
But is that going to satisfy, the questioner? I don't know.
Yeah.
All right, Ed, need your expertise on this. A little speculation again. You pointed out earlier that 3 defensive starters in the backfield last year are free agents and are up for new contracts or new teams. Steven Nelson, Edwards, and Harris and
McLeod.
Rodney.
If they're all looking at the same number on a 1-year deal, 5.56, but whatever it is, and you could only give it to one of them, which one would you give it to? Who would be the best player for them to retain this offseason out of the free agent cornerback and dual safeties that the Eagles have to make decisions on this offseason?
Of those 3, I would probably say Steven Nelson would be the guy I would give the money to. I think he was pretty underrated on that other side from Darius Slay. You look at his resume, I mean, he's been in the playoffs 6 out of his 7 years in the league. So the guy has played winning football, as Jonathan Gannon would say.
Yeah, it's my favorite.
Yeah, he's played winning football. They traded for 2 cornerbacks, Kerry Vincent and Tay Gowan, during the season. They drafted Zach McPherson, but none of them really seemed to develop the way the Eagles probably wanted them to. So Nelson's a proven guy. So, of those 3, I would go with him. He's the youngest of the 3. He's 29. The others are in their 30s. But the concern is then you open up both safety spots. If you're gonna go to the cornerback and give that contract to him and ignore the safeties, then you're really gonna have some building to do on that back end. So I could see them going maybe Harris because his injury history isn't as extensive as McLeod's. Until this year, he had played every snap for the last 2 or 3 years. So he's a reliable guy. Is he always the best guy? No, not really. But he's a pretty good tackler, and he's a little younger than Rodney, who has the injury history. And listen, McLeod's a great leader, great veteran, great in the community. He's been great for this football team since 2016 when he came in as a free agent. But if you're going to ask for a pecking order, I'd put him third in that order, and I'd go Nelson first, Harris, and then Rodney.
Yeah, and I think, and last one for me, Ed, and everybody read Ed Kracz at si.com/NFL/Eagles or eaglemaven.com. You can also read me there if you're so inclined. But you bring up a good point with Anthony Harris having a little bit younger than Rodney, less injury prone. Plus, you don't want to be replacing both safeties at one time. That's really difficult. But the other point is the draft, 15, 16, 19. And you're probably more likely to get a cornerback in that range than a safety. And that kind of plays into your strategy as well, because the kid from Notre Dame, Kyle Hamilton, he's probably going to be a top 10 pick. He's going to be out of your range. But you're going to be able to get a corner there. So I think that factors into it as well. But draft, bigger picture, Ed, I'm going to force you to stay at 15, 16, 19, which we know the Eagles won't do. I don't want names. I want positions. So 15, 16, 19, what do you think they're taking?
Well, I'll say this. If Kyle Hamilton is sitting there after the 5th pick, the Eagles could certainly move into the top 10 with the draft collateral they have to draft that Notre Dame kid. But if I'm sticking at 15, 16, 19, I'm probably going defensive line. I'm probably going offensive line, and I'll probably go a secondary piece, a cornerback or a safety. I think in free agency, you have to keep an eye on Marcus May, the safety from the Jets. Him and Denard Wilson have a history together. Denard Wilson coached him to one of May's best seasons in the NFL. I mean, he's someone to keep an eye on. So you talk about having to replace 2 safeties. They can get it done with free agency and in the draft. There's your two guys. But I think they'll go O-line or D-line, O-line, and secondary with that number 19 pick. That's the way I would go.
All right, so let me get this right. Marcus May goes from the Jets to the Eagles, and the Eagles get Barnett goes to the Jets because Joe Douglas has got to wait. I'm nixing that trade. No. Jets keep Marcus. The Eagles can keep Barnett. The Jets are keeping Marcus May. But by the way, you did it again too. We had Jack Berman on earlier. He said it wasn't. It was Dane Brugler. They're going to take an offensive lineman with one of their 2 picks.
They love
I know
it.
there's organizational philosophy, but that is the strength of this team. Isn't the draft to fill holes, to make yourself better at positions that you're not good enough at? They're going back to the offensive line again.
That's not the Eagles. If you ask Howie Roseman, the draft isn't for patching holes in that season. It's for 3 years down the line. What's that player going to look like? Is that player going to be ready to elevate into a starting position? And you have a line, Jody, with Lane Johnson, who's 30 plus, Jason Kelsey that might not be back. I mean, you have some moving pieces on that line that you need to put some resources into. So yeah, I'm going to go offensive line. I haven't looked too deeply into the available talent in the draft and this and that, but if there's somebody sitting there at 15, 16 that you like that can block, why not?
Yes, I agree 100%.
You're doing a disservice to the Tesla that is Sua Opeta. That's all I'm saying. That's the only point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, he looked like an Edsel against Tampa Bay, but that's just between us.
Hey, Eagles got more sacks than the Bucs did in the game on Sunday.
Yeah, they did. They look pretty good.
Ryan Kerrigan slow played us all.
Yeah.
Slow played us all.
Eddie Kracz, we're going to be tapping into you plenty during the offseason, but feel free to have a good weekend and kick back and watch some football, even though it doesn't include the Philadelphia Eagles.
Absolutely. Thanks, fellas. Have a great weekend.
Ed
Thanks, Ed.
Kracz, Sports Illustrated, here with us on Birds 365.